Hello and welcome, Admirals. My name is Tobidius and welcome to Battlefleet Tobidius, the YouTube channel dedicated to my favourite tabletop game, Battlefleet Gothic. It is a game set in the Warhammer 40,000 universe and is all around spaceships battling out in the 41st millennium. But what actually is Battlefleet Gothic?
So Battlefleet Gothic is set in the Warhammer 40k universe, and it represents each of the spacefaring factions and their ships. The scale of the ships and the lore was what drew me initially to the game, and the miniatures represent huge warships that, well, some are over 10 kilometers long, fighting over huge, vast distances in the void. Battlefleet Gothic was released back in 1999 by Games Workshop, and was one of the main specialist games of that era, along with the likes of Necromunda, Epic, Man of War, Warmaster, that sort of thing. The initial release came with Imperial and Chaos factions, which were included in the main box, which had 4 plastic ships that were included for both Chaos and Imperials. The first iteration of the rules was called the Big Blue Book, and that contained the main rules and stats for 4 of the main 40k factions, so Imperials, Chaos, Eldar, Corsairs, and Orc Pirates. And it focused on the war that happened in the Gothic sector. Typically, the game is played by 2 competing players, our Admirals, playing on a 6x4 board which represents different parts of space within the given star system you're fighting over. Various celestial phenomena such as planets, asteroids and warp storms can be used as terrain to help bring the board to life, and the players can select particular fleets that represents their favourite factions. This instance is an Eldar Voidstalker right here. Each faction has a selection of ships to choose from to build their fleet, and each ship in the game has various statistics to cover its capabilities, from its class size down to its defensive abilities, to dependent upon how many weapons it has and how quick it can go. Like most tabletop games, there's a general size limit, and that ranges from between 750 to 2,000 points, which does sound a lot, but this is actually a low model count game. And typically you have several squadrons of escorts, a couple of cruisers, maybe between 5 to 6, and then 1 battleship. So typically the game only lasts, has around 10 to 12 ships. The game has various scenarios in which your fleets do battle, ranging from small-scale convoy runs and raids to full-blown fleet engagements and planetary assaults. There are even exterminatus missions where you try to destroy a planet outright, which is pretty crazy and pretty good fun, and you can play with huge ships like the Planet Killer from the Chaos faction. It's these different scenarios and your ability to create your own fleet which really brings the joy to the game and allows you to really capture the spirit of naval engagements. During the game, players take turns to move, shoot and perform other orders, and the turn is broken up to 4 distinct phases: the movement phase, the shooting phase, the ordnance phase, and then the end phase where you repair damage and things like that. Each Admiral completes all these phases in their turn. Similar to other games of the time, it's a you go, then I go system. The phase is generally pretty straightforward, but players move their entire fleet in the movement phase. They shoot with that entire fleet depending on rage and their firing arcs. Then they launch torpedoes and bomber waves in the various ordnance they have available to those ships in the ordnance phase, and then in the end phase they repair damage and resolve things like boarding actions. This is kind of a simplistic description, and there are certainly more advanced rules such as orders and boarding ships. My particular favourite is the all-ahead full order, which allows you to ram other ships out of the way. Each faction has a fleet that's available to them, which has ships. They vary in different classes. Typically are broken down into escort, cruiser, and battleship classes. There are others, like things like light cruisers and grand cruisers, but they are fleet dependent. Each has their place within their own fleet, and each has a role to play. Escorts are typically used for maneuverability and protecting your vulnerable flanks and rear. Cruisers are your workhorses in pretty much any fleet. And then your battleships are your huge centerpiece flagships, powerful hammers to use against your foes. Each ship moves and acts independently and differently, and this generally creates a strong sense of inertia in the gameplay. You must choose between maneuverability versus firepower and toughness. This only increases with the play when you factor in the scenarios you're actually playing. You may not want a battleship for a particular blockade run where speed is of the essence. You need to think of the old Nipponic era style of naval warfare. The game was made with massive broadsides blasting each other and escorts protecting the flanks in mind. There is still certain satisfaction when you do manage to move your spaceships into position to cross the T and fire multiple broadsides into oncoming ships. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Over the years, Games Workshop published Battlefleet Gothic annuals to provide updated rules, which eventually culminated in the Battlefleet Gothic Armada supplement, or the Yellow Book, in 2003. The Armada supplement provided further updates to the Imperial, Chaos, Eldar, and Orc fleets, and also actually provided Space Marines, Tyranids, Tau, and Necrons fleets. These two books were really the only official rules Games Workshop ever endorsed, but then there were free data sheets provided for other fleets, such as the Admech and Eldar. In 2010, then, there was an FAQ provided, which was written in collaboration with Games Workshop and the community, which was called the BFG Rules Community, or the High Admiralty, as it were. It was a close relationship, and the feedback that Games Workshop provided to the designers was well received, and it made fleets like the Space Marine fleet much, much better. And it was officially recognised in the community and in tournaments such as Adepticon. In 2013, unfortunately, like all other specialists games at the time, the Battlefleet Gothic system was discontinued. But the rules were actually then provided as PDF form by Games Workshop for free, and these are now accessible to the BFG community and the rest of the community. And we're producing a lot of our own content. There are a number of magazines, there are a number of online creators creating different fleets, and there's a brilliant a raft of designers creating all sorts of new Xenos Imperial ships that can be used in the game. So thankfully, with the rules being free online now, anyone can download the rules via PDF. You can have a look at my website to see those, or on my Instagram, which is Tubidius. Thankfully as well, because of the designers 3D print market, we're able to get models a lot more quickly, simply, and straightforward, and there are plenty of free STLs that you can use and download to print off ships that can be represented in the game. And that, folks, is kind of BFG in a nutshell, and hopefully in the future I'll be providing some more in-depth videos on the actual turns, how you play, and go from there.